let's see what is the problem in the status quo, right? The sexual victims that should allow the procedural in criminal justice system that is very, very harmful, that put them in the very bottoms of position. They have to report the case into the police, for example. They have to collect all the evidence. They have to go to a consultation, get a consultation into the doctors. That it shows to you how the burden or how these kinds of hard circumstances goes to the sexual victims at the end of the day. And also, it's not only about how the heart of the process of procedural, but also we let them into get exposed by the media, by the society, for example. These kinds of exposures by the media just lead them to create a worse conditions at the end of the day. But second problem is that it's not only about the case of the victims, but also about the perpetrators, right? They have to attain the court, for example, in the status quo, that easily to make them get away from these kinds of cases, ladies and gentlemen. It's very harmful situations because it's unfair. It's lead to how the situations and how the process of criminal justice system won't be able to solve the problems, especially the case about the sexual offenders at the end of the day. So our stance as the government side, we want to allow these kinds of restorative justice to apply the regulations that could be easily to control in our side, and also we give them the legal security to create a better environment for all the stakeholders, especially for the victims and the perpetrators at the end of the day. So how it works in our side of the house? First, we are using the way that we would like to share our experience. We have conduct the discussions, negotiate, and also we can use the process process that we don't want to allow this status quo process that you have to enter the court and let the judge to give the punishment, for example, because we think that in our side it is much better, because the process is not only about how the discussion would happen, but also we would like to negotiate in form of payment, for example, apologies to other entities, and also try to compensate with the things that also we would like to give the psychological treatment, for example, for the victims. That's why we say that it's very, very beneficial in our side. But secondly, in our side also, we are using the mediator, right? We are not directly dismissing towards to the actors that also have to include in the process of restorative justice, such as the lawyer itself. We are also still help the process of investigation, the process collecting the data, evidence, and so on and so forth. Means that the law procedure still also work in our side of the house. So two arguments in my speech. First is that why it's the ideal criminal justice system by allow the restorative justice to the sexual offenders, and secondly, how it's going to be better and comparative to the method that happened in the status quo. So first argument, why it's a good ideal criminal justice system. We say that in our side, what we want to achieve is that the same opportunity, right? Our ideal world, we want that the perpetrators or even the victims could get the same goals and opportunity in criminal justice system. This opportunity necessarily important for the law itself, because the law is something that works as the compass of every individual. This is work as the moral compass that shows to you how to measure the things is true or false. It's really influenced by how the outcome of these kinds of law would work under our side. That is why we say that the same opportunity for the perpetrators and the victims is really important. So secondly, we would like to prove how it's going to be exclusive in the case of sexual offenders. We have to see what happened in the status quo, ladies and gentlemen. The damage of harm is a very, very centrist to the victims itself, right? Let's see what happened with the victims. Instead of they hard to get the procedure, they hard to access all the law procedure that they have to fulfill. They also really influenced by the social judgment that still exists under status quo. That makes the victim feel embraced to access a lot of things. For example, they feel ashamed to go to school. For example, they feel ashamed to go to to access any kinds of things that is productive towards to themselves, ladies and gentlemen. Let's engage in the case of especially it's a woman. For a majority of the victims it's a woman. It's really harmful even more to the woman, ladies and gentlemen, because it oppresses the woman even more. And also in ours, even if the case also not only cater about the woman case cases, even the male, for example, it's also harmful in status quo mechanism, ladies and gentlemen. Why? It's harmful under two reasons, right? Because first, the court most likely won't believe you if you are a male and you are a victim of the sexual assault, for example. That shows to you how the social judgment is a very influential towards to this kinds of thing. But secondly, in our side, it's better, right? At least we give them same opportunity to get opt-out mechanism, and we think it's much better in our side. And let's engage to the perpetrators, right? What happened in the status quo mechanism towards the perpetrators, we see that this kinds of mechanism is not going to be effective anymore. Because let's see, first, the victim should go first to report the case, which is also still hard to happen in the status quo, because what I said before, the social construct, the social judgment that still exists under status quo, but also people feel ashamed to show their identity, for example, especially when they are victims that they have to prove anything step by step, and in the form of sexual case, ladies and gentlemen. It's really create a traumatic event to these kinds of actors, but also this shows to you how the perpetrators would have a high tendency to get away from these kinds of cases, ladies and gentlemen, because most likely these cases would never be appear in the criminal court, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, using our alternative could be beneficial in terms of how this restorative justice would most likely have a high tendency to make people report and realize to their own actions, ladies and gentlemen. This debate, it shouldn't prove why the perpetrator is going to rape someone, for example, but this debate should explain which side that could put more opportunity for the perpetrators or even the victims to not feel afraid anymore to report these kinds of cases, and also to prove how these kinds of cases is really important to appear in the law enforcement. Second argument, how it's going to be better in the form of method by using these kinds of restorative justice. The opposition might defend the mechanism in status quo by using this distributive justice because it's transparent and so on and so forth. We say that our side is effective under three reasons, right? First is that the willingness to report the case. Secondly, coping mechanism that much easier happen in our side, but also how the process of deterrence and rehabilitation is much better in our side. First is that the willingness. In opposition, the people, both victims and perpetrators, have a high level of high anxiety and trauma. That's lead to make them close the chance to report the case at the end of the day. But secondly, in the term of coping mechanism, in our world, we want to make people have the same opportunity to cure themselves, ladies and gentlemen, because the justice is subjective towards every individual. That means to you, in comparative in their side, the coping mechanism would most likely hard to be happen, especially for the victims, because they are not having other media or other platforms to begin with. But also in the idea of deterrence and rehabilitations, the process on how people aware is much more bigger in our side, because the process of how you communicate with the victims, for example, is most likely bigger in comparative in the side of the house. That is why we're proud to propose.
The restorative justice system will not ever give in the beneficial towards the victim of the sexual cases, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we still want to give these kinds of problem, bring it to the core for the sake of a better, more justice, better identification in terms of solving the problem, and also in terms of better deterrent effect for the sexual offenders itself, ladies and gentlemen. Government side of the house trying to bring the idea that by these kinds of restorative justice will still create a better discussion, because there also exists the mediator or the lawyer inside of this discussion. So that is why it's still giving the deal for the both sexual offenders and also the victim itself. But I think that it's something that have to frame up from this debate, since the Prime Minister never trying to give explanation how the mediator itself will not be biased, for example, will still giving the deal decision for both parties, and how it will be work as well in their ideal work, ladies and gentlemen. Because what we see is that their best scenario, their context is they're playing to the place where people are hurt to pursue the court system, ladies and gentlemen, which we believe that not all the women also suffer as the same cases, ladies and gentlemen. There's still women that can have the ability to pursue this kinds of thing, which we think that it is something that have to support and also have to encourage all the women to do the same things, ladies and gentlemen. They said it's also by the retributive justice, it only will make the victim of the sexual harassment will be worse even more, because there will be exist the victim blaming that exists in our society, ladies and gentlemen. But if that is the case, there is also something that we don't want in our side, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to prove to you why in our case, even if this case happen, it will still be covered, because you will be supported, you will be defended by the legitimate actors. Different in their side, you only will be defended by people that not have the clear background, for example, to solving your problem, ladies and gentlemen. And also in argument that talking about the rehabilitations for both, because there will be a good communications will be integrated in my argument. So first argument, why it is something that is not fair for the victim of the sexual harassment, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what will happen in a restorative justice. There will be the negotiations and also the discussions happen. First, we believe that it's something not good. Why? Because through this negotiation and also the discussion itself, both stakeholders will be irrational. Because they only want to go out from the problem instantly, ladies and gentlemen. First, to the sexual offenders itself, they will be irrational because they have the livelihood, because they want to avoid the punishment that probably they will got, ladies and gentlemen, in court at the moment when they lose in the court, for example. Second, it also will be irrational for the victim itself, because the victim will be irrational because they think that they will feel ashamed because it's a bad narrative in the society since you become the victim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something that very hard when to consider, because to the first reasons, the sexual offender only want to searching for the way out not to be punished, because it will not create the deterrent effect for the sexual offenders itself, and also it only become a short way mechanism which only that can be more safe for them, for example. And also it will be bad for the victim itself, because we think that if you're not trying to bring it to the court, it will create a victim blaming. Victim blaming that will exist even worse, ladies and gentlemen. The discussions also will be bad. Because it will only close family. It will be a close discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Only the relatives and also the family that will engage in that particular discussion, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we believe that even if there are probably a more wide community that will exist to be engaged in that particular discussions, we believe that it is something that's will still not good to be happen, because the other party that will try to engage in that particular discussion will not comprehensively understand towards the cases itself, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why we believe that it leads to my second argument, which side that will create a better deterrent effects, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to consider that principally why people are afraid to do criminal cases, because they believe that there is the consequences that will happen towards their actions. The reason why people are afraid spreading the drugs, because you will be in prison, for example, for 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. That is the narrative that we want to also be planned in a sexual offenders, ladies and gentlemen. No matter what kinds of, no matter what the reason behind you do that kinds of sexual harassment, for example, what kinds of things that you try to protect yourself first, they still have to realize that what they've done is something that is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. In their side, these kinds of things will not be happen, because they think that there will be other mechanism that will exist to save them, ladies and gentlemen. Which we think that these kinds of things also will very feasible for them to be safe, because first in that particular discussions, for example, there will be an overpower discussion, ladies and gentlemen. For example, the offenders will try to provide or also to call the family that have a more big power, for example, to exploit, for example, the family that become a victims, that become a victim, ladies and gentlemen. And also, even if in their best case scenario, because this restorative justice if it's not achieved, it will drive to the court. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll prove to you why, even if it will drive to the court as the worst case mechanism, it will still be bad. Because in that court discussion, this stakeholder, the sexual offender, had already know what kinds of thing that you want to try to bring in the court. For example, they had already identified what kinds of things that you will try to defend. So that's why they will try to looking for the counter argument in that court, ladies and gentlemen. So that is why the court will not be good, because these kinds of sexual offenders will be exploitative even more, ladies and gentlemen. Even if they say that it's hard for them to prove that they are the victim, but we believe that in the current status quo, it still be feasible to identify whether you are the victim or not. You still have the scars, you still have the psychological conditions, ladies and gentlemen. Even if you try to hide it, your psychological condition cannot lie. People will still can label you as a people that have severe these kinds of conditions, ladies and gentlemen. Revisiting, it is still bad, because in comparative, in the end of the day, even if you are labeled as there is a victim blaming exists, we think that in our side is still okay, because in our side you still have a supporter, you still have the backup coming from the legitimate actors, ladies and gentlemen. In comparison, in your side, you will still be known from mouth to mouth, and you will still and you have no any kinds of other mechanism to show that you are the victim, to show that you are the victim. So that's why we think that this system is bad. The motion falls. Thank you.
But panels, several clarification. First, that we are also want to create an environment where both the perpetrator, the wrongly accused perpetrator, also the victim, has the space for them to prove or to say what are the traumatic experiences, what are the things that have been inside of them. This proposal also gives also the place for them to prove without having media exposure. Thus, we are also question the opposition inside the house when they are want to say that this is a closed discussion, and it is very important to having a discussion with the court, and everyone wants to know about the information. Why this is hard? Because it is only benefited the people in power, because they want publication. They want everyone to make sure that they are the people who are wrongly accused just because they want to make the fame of these very famous people to be brought down, ladies and gentlemen. They are also need to explain to us why that particular cases of having those discussion is better. I will prove to you later why it is important too. But second clarification, justice in their work only can exist if in status quo people have the ability to report. The reason why this motion exists is because it is responding to the scenario when people cannot have the ability to reporting if they are being a victim of sexual harassment, let's say, or sexual offense, ladies and gentlemen. It is a case where it is the policy where makes people able to go into a room where assisted by an experienced person that will make the outcome, for example, is cited to the victim. It will also make sure that this particular victim have the psychological assistance. Also make sure that this particular perpetrator will have a compensation, for example, towards the victim. Thus, if they are claiming in their side that the restorative justice is the kind of speedy trial and finish it as soon as possible, we are respond it by saying no. In our side, the problem is finished when there is an agreement, for example, in both sides of the house. Thus, they should also need to explain to us why the particular agreement that exists, if the particular perpetrator is already agreed to give such assistance, it is not working anymore. I will prove to you also later why this particular proposal is very, very engageful towards those particular scenarios. To prove two things that I will prove in my particular substantive. First, Why, if we are not implementing this idea, it will prolonging the vigilante. Second, why it is the form of toxic empowerment that only empower the segmented society, which is the progressive and also the people who live in a privileged condition. First, it is prolonging the vigilante. The idea of the movement or all the society that exists in this world is they want to go following government policy. They want to following all the policy that government make in order for them to empower women. But the reason why the feminist or social movement oftentimes do some vigilante, such as doxing, exposing all the whole identity of the perpetrator, for example, because they are realized that the government is fucked up and they cannot follow the government policy anymore, because the outcome of the results of the process of them searching for the justice of the sexual perpetrator, for example, is very, very damaged inside of their country. What are the momentum? First of all, in status quo, the sexual offender is easily running away, so they cannot directly demand the particular sexual offender to showing their evidences. The reason may be because they are having so much power, for example, and the policy cannot also accommodate them. But second of all, in court, they are oftentimes also being sided towards the one who having a power inside a particular court, which is the one who having a privilege. Why this particular the whole analysis is harming? Because the cycle of violent problem solving always repeated in their side, because people always believe that the government cannot solve it and they think they are the one who capable too. Let's say the case of Gulabi gang in India. This case happened because some collective women believe that they can directly solve the issue by simply hitting the man. But this is a very harmful, because the cycle of them doing a violent thing as the means of the solvency of the issues is going to be repeated again. This policy becomes important because it is a form of sign that the government is fixing the system and giving the safety net to the movement that the chance of solvency of the issue is highly achievable, ladies and gentlemen. It is not only just the policy that just to make sure that it can solve it in many cases. It is also a sign to saying to all the particular society that the government has been going to fix this issue. So thus it sends a narrative. If someone has to be the victim of sexual offense, they should go into having this particular method of solvency rather than going to be restorative justice. But what is the exact problem of retributive justice? I will explain to you in my second argument, which is it will create a toxic empowerment. What is the toxic empowerment exactly? It is the empowerment that is not sensitive to all types of victims and assumes that the victims are ready to speak up about their sexual experiences, sexual offense experiences, for example, like Me Too, for example, like all the progressive movement that is against in our status quo. It is only assumes that all those particular people are ready to speak up regardless of their trauma and their inability to speak about their harm that they have been feel about those particular past experiences. But the reason why this is happening, because I divide it into two reasons. First reason, because they are very, very trauma. And this policy, if it's not implemented, it will harm them so much more. They are trauma within the harm of sexual offense already, then without the existence of this policy, they are forced to undergo retributive justice. It is giving them additional trauma. Why this is happening? Because they are forced to undergoing such the process of court. They are forcing to exposing the evidence towards the whole society inside the nation, for example. It is the particular pressure that is given to them because they are not having a control for this particular issue by themselves. Thus, the whole society control this particular single individual to determine what is the next move that this particular people should have. That is why policies is important, because it gives the control to the people to decide what moves that these people should have next. Whether or not they want to give the whole material inside a particular chamber with assistant lawyer, for example, or etc. That is why this is a very important thing. But second characteristic, we are going to engage into the conservatives. In the case where you are becoming a victim, it is same as the tabooness in the society, the same as the social garbage, for example. You cannot be accepted anymore just because you are a victim. Or this is also engaging to the case when you are being a victim and you are a man. You are being seen as a weak if your case is if your case is exposed to the whole media and to the whole society, that you are a person simply that cannot fight for your own right, fight for your own self, and this particular policy will help you because it can treat your cases silently in a condition when you are not exposed publicly, ladies and gentlemen. Why this is a very important analysis? Because both cases, trauma and conservative, have the same treatment of solvency. They need silence. They need people to talk in, not to be exposed by the media, and they are all in a condition where people should engage for them into the constructive agreement. To the extent they have a psychological assistant, they should be better in terms of their particular solvency and etc. Thus, in this particular argument, I have concluded two things. First, if you are prolonging their argument, if you are prolonging also the vigilante, there have been repeated all around and the particular scope. Second of all, this kind of toxic empowerment has contributed so much to the loneliness of the solvency of this problem. Thus, our proposal is able to solve that. Thank you.